Okay, welcome everybody, those who are here. I think it's going to take a little while before we understand that we are actually resuming after the conference, and those of you who made it to the conference in person, that was great, and if not, some people were telling me they were able to follow most of the whole thing via the internet, via the broadcasting. So anyway, Tuija and I are back here in Finland, and we started this morning, I guess maybe a week later than we anticipated. Started this morning with the triangles meditation, and now we're doing the science of triangles, academic readings, and see what we can gather out of that. So I'd just like to, so far for those of you who are here, to welcome Annette and Antoinette and Barbara, Christopher, Diana, and Karen, and Martha, Suzanne, and Tuija's here. I think maybe I'll put you over here on the other side. Okay? Maybe that will help. And just anybody who's on staff, if you want to speak, just just say so, and we'll be just fine. So let's have a little bit of an alignment, and then I think today we're going to concentrate mostly as a continuation on some of the cities, not the cities, but the cities, which are linked together as planetary centers, and there are very large implications to these linkings, and it will be even more so in the future when the soul ray of these planetary centers begins really to emerge. I don't think we can say that those rays have entirely emerged, not by any means, and we're oftentimes dealing with personality obstruction. Anyway, let's those of us who are here, and we're gathering a few as we go along, and now the regular program is operating. So let's just link up with each other. Mostly we're in the United States, and also South Africa and New Zealand, Australia, and some in Europe and South America. So let's link up with each other as soul-infused personalities, at least in the process here. And we realize that we're all meeting at the same time, but apparently in different spaces. But really, there's only one space in consciousness, and we are really here together, trying to create a magnetic aura upon which the higher thoughts, higher light, a higher sense of unity, and the will of our planetary logos can make their impressions. And we work together in this way so that the light within our consciousness can grow, and so we always understand more of the interrelations of things, and understanding in that way leads to the unification of those energies, which right now may be frictional, but a gradual harmonization. And so that's our objective: further understanding, further love and harmony, and to somehow in our little lives carry out the some little aspect of the will of God. Of course, we don't go directly there. We do have the will of our ashram and of the major Ray ashram in which we are involved, and the will of the hierarchy as a whole, and the will of Shambhala eventually, and finally, one day, maybe at the seventh initiation, when the planetary logos presides over that initiation, not just Sanat Kumara, his emanation, then we'll know something about the will of God, our planetary logos. So we'll sound an Om confirming these thoughts. Right. And a few more have joined us here, and welcome to you, Eva. And Maria was here. She's now offline again, and then Veronica. Okay, welcome to you. People will be joining us as we go, and as we begin to understand that we are, after all, resuming the best we can after what for Tuya and me has been a couple of pretty intensive months, and I guess anybody who really worked at the presentational level at the conference has had an intense time on the third ray. Now, the fourth ray conference is coming up, and maybe you'll be the first to hear its title. All I have to do is find it, And here it is for the fourth ray conference of 2020. Interesting. Hopefully that we can get to see things with real accuracy, because we're going to need it in a time which is an election year.
Michael, can you add there the dates?
Oh, why not? Okay. So it's 28 April to 10 May of 2020. Tuesday, the 28th of April, pre-conference, and then I forget exactly what it'll be, but if I count backwards, it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Looks like May 5th we begin the main conference. So it'd be lovely to have you there and begin to think in those terms. I think we had a very good, successful conference on many aspects of the third ray, all the way from the very abstract ideas, the ray of abstract mind, down to the practical financial issues of what it is that shall be created, because financial energy, is directed towards such creation. So it's a new group of world servers leading humanity towards harmony, beauty, and truth. And those who have been studying carefully will realize that this is a Taurian body, ruled by the fourth ray, and the fourth ray takes us to the fourth plane, which is the Buddhic plane. The color, at least, well, there's several colors, but the color is yellow for human beings. And we have the whole idea of harmony, beauty, and art coming in here, and also truth. But harmony is not won except through conflict, and beauty is of all kinds emanating from the Buddhic plane, And finally, when the intuition is available to us, we do see the truth, actually see it in immediate form, rather than have to always reason our way towards it. So I think, it's a very promising title, and will include many of the Buddhic factors which are on the horizon for so many of us as we try to transcend the mind as we normally consider it. The Buddhi is transcendental mind, and Mercury will be very important, and Jupiter and Neptune. And anyway, I think we'll have a good time. It's about a year off, so mark your calendars and see if it's possible for you to be present with us in Chandler, Arizona, for the 4th conference, interestingly enough, that we'll be holding in that particular venue. Okay. Tuija, is there anything you would like to say about that? I think...
No, I don't need to add anything.
Yeah.
Just welcome for everybody.
Okay, and you heard our dog Sophie in the background, and she'll be contributing now and then with an occasional snort or snore or whatever she does. She's a Taurus.
She loves to come immediately when she realized that we have webinar. She came here.
That's good. Well, she's Taurus, so an aspiring member of the new group of world servers. Okay, well, let's get into our readings for the day. And as I say, it's pretty much, well, first of all, Tuija made these charts, and we're going to be referring to them about the 5 major inlets for hierarchical energy. London, on the first ray as a planetary center, and it's the first ray in its building aspect. Geneva, a subtle second ray energy. It's the only second ray center. Then New York, it's a 6th ray center, whatever the rays of the city itself may be. Notice that the rays of the city are often different from the rays of the planetary center. And then Tokyo hasn't really emerged yet, and it's another ray 1 center. It hasn't emerged in its true spiritual aspect. And Darjeeling, probably the most spiritual of all, eventually to emerge. It's said to be Moria's city. I'll have to always distinguish between siddhi and city. The siddhi, as you know, is a psychic power, ever more powerful as we ascend the plane. So we're going to be referring to this and also to this 5-pointed star that gives you an idea of where things are. Now, the last time we talked, we kind of dealt with London a little bit, and it is a first ray center, but it's let's see, I think there's a place somewhere in the books here where it gives you, right here it gives you the triangle, 2 triangles. Oops, Sophie. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Tuija. Yeah. You said?
Before you go there, I was just thinking if you could put this image of the 5-pointed star.
Yes.
So it indicates.
Yes.
It is indicating the consciousness star of humanity. But because humanity is not awakened yet, so the triangle within this 5-pointed star is between London, New York, and Geneva. This is the triangle which is the most active. And for us, when we think about, Michael was pointing out that the Geneva is the only second ray center, planetary center. And for us, it is extremely important to realize how important triangle is in question. So whenever anything happens in these centers, it has the direct reflection what's going on in humanity as whole, because it's only one humanity, and the humanity is one entity which has its own struggles. And we can think in one sense that when we compare the initiations, that as a humanity, we try to reach the first initiation on the threshold. But then in disciples, we can think that way, that it's the second initiation and the third initiation, which are the most obviously those initiations which and of course the first initiation as well, but like the fourth initiation and the fifth initiation, they are really far ahead for whole humanity and also working disciples.
You know, in a
so
way,
that's why the
yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
That's why the centers like Tokyo and Darjeeling are still in latent mode because of the states of humanity.
It's as if I think
that is what I wanted to point.
Well, you know, we're in the fifth root race here, and you know, we always have to be looking for triangles. And if we take the first initiation, the symbol is the five-pointed star, and thus it is for the second initiation, thus it is for the third initiation, the five-pointed star, and only when we reach the fourth initiation does the symbol change into that of the Egyptian eye, or maybe the eye of Horus. You know, it's frequently seen. And finally, at the fifth initiation, and I'm not sure how that would work out for countries themselves, but you get to see Sanat Kumara face to face, and not really before that. So, you know, in one way, we know that the fifth initiation requires the crown center, the thousand-petaled lotus, and the base of the spine. And in a planetary sense, I'm wondering at this time whether Darjeeling is not representing that head center, not really fully awakened by any means, and Tokyo with the in more materialistic aspect, and especially we'll see in a minute, because it is a Scorpio kind of city in a Scorpio country, whether Pluto is not very, very important to represent the base of the spine. But humanity is really nowhere near ready to consider these things. As Tuya was saying, we're just facing the first initiation in general. And disciples, the great majority of them in the Tibetans group, were facing the second initiation, whether it would be 1, 2, or 3, or 4 lives ahead, could be the very life itself, but they were facing the second, and a few there were, maybe very few, that were facing the third, and DK never said anything about training disciples for the fourth initiation. Matter of fact, he said at first, I only trained for the first and second initiation, and later he added in the third initiation. So, you know, looking at this, London is...
Michael?
Yes, Tuya, yes?
No, it's BL. I'm sorry.
Oh, BL.
Karen has asked if we could have a copy of the five-pointed star. If you or Tuya will send me those, I will make sure they're posted with to Makara when we post the recording.
Okay.
I will do that. I will send for you very soon. I just work now with it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Now, so from the constructive aspect, London is a first-race center. It's kind of interesting, you know, it's basically, it has a very, the country itself has a Gemini second-race soul, and the personality of the country has a Taurus first-rate personality. But you can see that Venus, the two rulers of Taurus, would be very important. Vulcan would be important in relation to the first ray and the sign Taurus. It's the esoteric ruler. and it can be used exoterically as well. And Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini and has to do with that kind of fusing and blending of all of the groups in the world. I think the motto is I serve. I believe that is the motto of that particular country or assembly of countries, with its second-ray soul and first-ray personality. So it's really quite constructive, and the sense of ritual is very strong in London, and the sense of fair play in general, and the scientific investigation is very, very strong. If you begin to look at the presence of Newton and other scientific luminaries and the various inventions that England or United Kingdom, and maybe concentrated in London, has been responsible for, you're going to see a very, very strong fifth ray. So somehow we have to put all of these things together, and we would expect that in the future there will be a lot of revelation about the nature of the soul and how to, that's the fifth ray, and how to apply it in practical terms. And it would build a kind of peace and right relationships between many nations in the world through Gemini and the second ray. And see, look at all these rays. It's really amazing. The country has the second and first ray. The city, London, has the fifth and seventh rays, and the country has Gemini and Taurus. There's lots of opposites going on here, and for those who are involved in the thick of things, I guess we could say there's quite a struggle going on in the United Kingdom right now between the personality and the soul, just the way there is in the United States. Two second-ray countries, essentially, are struggling to have that second ray emerge against different varieties of selfishness, we might say. So anyway, I serve is the motto. The two rulers of Taurus are very important here because we're talking about construction rather than just destruction. Now, Vulcan, the hammer aspect, can be constructive or destructive, but it's really quite different from Pluto, and it's involved with the construction of right human relations. This we discussed before, and now we have President Trump. He's visiting there, and I would say bringing many of these issues to a head as people question what is the nature of our country, what are we looking for, and they are under a very strict time limit given by the European Union. So we'll have to watch carefully about the relationship between London and the UK and the European Union in general. You see, London is a planetary center, and it has to do a lot with certain of the former colonies, let's just say Canada, New Zealand, Australia, even India, which is very, very independent. But, there's this very strong relationship. So that's as a planetary center. But as a city, it is in a way part of Europe. And England and the UK are part of Europe. So it's a duality operating there. One is a planetary function in the larger sense, and the other is a European function, and we have to see how this works out. In this particular case, the science of triangles becomes, I think, very important in a practical sense. Tuya, do you have anything you want to say on this?
No,
Okay.
I'm just working with this slide.
Okay, very good. Now, we have not gone over, Gemini is such an important, it's very interesting that Alice Bailey, who was the sun in Gemini, was a British person who moved to the United States to do this particular kind of work for the messenger of the masters, who we have to assume as Master DK, had a very powerful Gemini. So here's the Gemini soul of United Kingdom, and here's the Gemini personality of America. Here's the Gemini nature of Master DK, and the Gemini nature of Alice Bailey. And you could even say there could be a triangle. We could say United Kingdom, Master DK, Alice Bailey, and America or United States, Master DK, and Alice Bailey. You can have triangles that are not just on the same level, but they can operate on decreasing or increasing levels. So let's just say we might have one very great constellation, one zodiacal constellation, and the ruler of that zodiacal constellation. There would be three different levels. So people can be included in these things. It's very interesting, too, that the Russian, Helena Blavatsky, was told to write in English and go to the United States to do the writing, because the teaching does go forth from the United States. I light the way. Maybe I should put that down. If I don't forget someone remind me, if I manage to start forgetting the mottos, I light the way. So here's now New York. Let's take a look at the map. Okay. And interestingly enough, it is a very sixth ray center from a planetary perspective. Now, here are the two triangles, and New York is always found in both of the triangles. London, New York, Darjeeling. Now, interesting, of course, London and Darjeeling have a very strong connection. There are many reincarnated from India in the United Kingdom, and the same goes from Rome, and Tokyo, New York, and Geneva. New York is a pivotal point. And I wanted to say, by the way, when Tuya was discussing this, that in the next root race, the symbol will be a six-pointed star. And when we finally get to the seventh root race, in our particular round, the symbol will be a seven-pointed star. And there will be seven planetary centers involved. And we do, presently, we see there's nothing going on right now as far as such a center goes in South America and in Africa. But we can look for the future, towards the future, that those great continents will be activated. And Australia is there as well. It's from an ancient time, but you can see that there is a base of the spine function seeming to operate from Australia. And it's having to do with the third root race. So this is how the masters think. They think in terms of energies and energy relationships, not just in terms of names and popular impressions and how things seem to be. Every entity is an energy quantity to the masters. Now let's see where we are here. Right, so New York, it's Ray 6, devotion and idealism, and all you have to do is see the Statue of Liberty there and what it really stands for, and we get the idea of the great Ray 6 of the center in New York for all of the Americas, and in some ways including Canada, but of course Canada being primarily a second ray and seventh ray country has, they often marvel at how emotional the Americans are, and certainly the South Americans, because they're a little bit cooler, but I think we would have to include them as well. And they operate for the Western Hemisphere. And interestingly, this sign Cancer is showing up more than once. It's showing up for New York and also for Tokyo. Now, some of us have visited New York variously, and we have seen that the city used to be divided into different neighborhoods where various ethnic and national groups congregated. There was Little Italy, there was Germantown, there was Chinatown, whatever. They tended to be within an enclave of people similar to themselves. And that is one of the lower functions of Cancer. But when you look at the city itself, we have a great second-ray soul for New York, New York, London, Darjeeling, a second-ray soul and a third-ray personality. And that's exactly what has to be blended for humanity. We have a lot of trouble blending the second and third ray. DK warned us that they are rays that do not easily go together. The third ray is out of alignment. The second ray soul and third ray personality of our particular planetary logos, they are not fitting well together. But the United Nations, the main headquarters is in New York, and the possibility of putting together the kind of love, wisdom, energy, and the practical carrying out creative energy is very strong when emanating from that particular city. And I would say that notice carefully, let's see, I'll go over here. When it comes to New York, the country, America, has a second-ray soul and a sixth-ray personality. Now you see the connection, do you not? The second-ray soul energy of New York blends exactly with the soul energy of the United States. The sixth ray planetary center energy blends with the personality ray of the United States. So it's a very good fit. And you'd expect a lot of the Buddhic energy, a lot of Jupiter and Neptune to be here, but of course Saturn is the third ray planet, and it's a very financial planet, and it's a great communications and financial center, so you'd expect Mercury to be very strong as well. I light the way. Now, we disciples who kind of are anchored in the United States in one way or another, the teaching is said to go forth from the United States. And in both cases, of the first two installments of the Tibetan's work, it has been the case. The teaching with Blavatsky went forth from the United States. The teaching with Alice Bailey went forth from the United States. And do we therefore expect, under this motto of I light the way, do we therefore expect that the third installment of the teaching, expected now in just a few years, around the year 2025, will also go forth from the United States? We will have to see, and there will be a great exercise in discrimination to make sure that we really fasten upon the correct teaching and don't deny it or overly eagerly accept it, but don't deny it the way the Theosophists did when the Tibetan continued his installments with Alice Bailey. Now, so, put all these energies together. The Aquarius soul of the United States. Of course, you've got to look at the soul of South America really as a whole, or of that great country, Brazil, with its, I think it's, am I correct, a Leo fourth ray soul. It fits very much in that way with Italy, interestingly enough. Not exact, but close. A Leo fourth ray soul and a Virgo second ray personality. So maybe it is the largest country. I believe it's even bigger than the United States per se, if you exclude Alaska, continental United States. And it is the fourth largest country. So it will be very, very important in the new sixth root race, which is coming upon us in another 2,000 years. But here we have Aquarius and the second ray. So we have Gemini and the sixth ray. That's causing a lot of trouble right now because there's so much fighting going on about what are the ideals. And I believe it was said at the conference, but the battle for democracy will be fought out at first and in the United States. And we see this going on right now. In Gemini, there is the autocratic tendency of the personality to want its own rights and to be selfishly engaged. And then there is the more selfless type of idealism which blends with the soul. That's being fought out right now. And it's very different from, what is Emma Lazarus? Was she the poet? Give me your tired, you're poor, you're hungry, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore, something like that. It was very second ray embracing Aquarius through the Statue of Liberty, a very high sixth ray. And then, how Cancer is, we're all one big family in this melting pot of New York and the melting pot of America in general. The key is learn how to put the energies together. It's the same with astrology. You're faced with a bunch of different signs and planets and all that. How do you make an intelligent, revelatory blend of these energies so that it really makes sense to you? But now we have seen the overlap between New York and the rays of the United States, and we've seen, you can get into a lot of details here, but, Aquarius has that Jupiter and connects with the second ray, and it's very inclusive, and Gemini has this hyperactivity. It's the third sign, and it fits well with the third ray of New York. If you've ever been to New York, you better watch it when you cross the street, because everything's in motion, and the cabs are not exactly there to run you down, but they will if you're not careful. So it's hyperactivity, but also the soul of love behind it all. Are there any, are there any questions or comments as we deal with London and New York thus far? Anything that you see that looks interesting to you or that you would like to comment upon? Just raise your hand if you would like to. And okay, that's Karen on the 5-pointed star. Right. Anything that you would like to comment on in relation to the energies which we have thus far with London and New York? See, very different energies. Look at London, 5 and 7. Look at New York, 2 and 3. Here's London. They are rays of attribute. Here's New York. They are definitely rays of aspect, the higher rays. But all of them, of course, are needed. All of them are needed. And I think all of them are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7. Yep, they're all present. Okay. Anything you want to say thus far? Or ask? Or anything of that nature? Okay. Obviously we have to ponder on these things. Anybody who's interested in politics, in sociology, in international relationships, in national relations, the Tibetan has given us a tremendous wealth of information. And now that so many more countries have emerged, albeit many of them in their relatively child state, very early, unintegrated state, I think he'll give us still more information politically considered when he begins to write again around the year 2025. For so many nations, he doesn't give you the ray and the astrology, but the nations that he does discuss, he at least gives you the astrology, and then you can figure out, if you can, what the rays may be. And some of these are fairly, they're important nations in the world. So, like, for instance, we live here in Finland, and the astrology is given as a Capricorn soul and a Aries personality, but the rays are not given. But we know that there's a very strong seventh ray and probably fourth ray and first ray. And with Greece, let us say, there's the sign Cancer is given, I think. The sign Virgo is given, but not the rays. But we know that ray 3 is very important, and ray 4 from earlier times, very important. So that's a challenge to us as we begin to think about what rays may exist along with the astrology given. Okay, any questions up to this point, or any thoughts up to this point? Notice that in this book, Esoteric Astrology, the Tibetan gives you a different order than he does over here, you see. This is London, Geneva, New York, Tokyo, Darjeeling. That's maybe more or less in order if you... Well, no, it's not in order, but it is an order. And here he gives a different method. Now, Tokyo is a little bit difficult to, maybe for us Westerners, to understand. He did say that Japan would be very, very important in terms of the triangle's work. There must be something about the psyche of the Japanese which will take to the triangle's work very well. And remember, something of real importance, that the personality ray of a country does from time to time change. And, Japan suffered a tremendous defeat in World War II, and it was the only country in which atomic energy was released in a destructive manner. And look at the amazing connection that Japan has with atomic energy. Again, a tidal wave, a tsunami comes along and is in danger of poisoning the whole country. We don't know what the karma may be, but you begin to wonder whether something of the Capricornian seventh ray isn't creeping into the personality of Japan. Anyway, it's a first ray center. So far we have London, constructive first ray, New York, idealistic sixth ray, of course, and Tokyo as a planetary center, the materialistic first ray. And we can see why that might be so. It's the very center of a Capricornian nation, and we do know that the very highest and the lowest are found in Capricorn, so the tendency to materialism can be very strong. And something that's interesting for those of you who are following the rays carefully is that there's an exact reversal of the rays of the city Tokyo and the rays of the country Japan. Whereas Tokyo is ruled by the sixth ray soul and fourth ray personality, Japan as a whole is ruled by the fourth ray soul and sixth ray personality. So there's a interesting reversal there. We would, the country itself has Scorpio soul and a Capricorn personality, and therefore, naturally, we're going to think that Mars, which rules exoterically and esoterically, is going to be important on the soul level, and that Saturn, which rules exoterically and esoterically, the Capricorn personality will be very important on that particular level. Now, obviously, a country is a big thing. A city is a big thing. And all the rays are going to be active. But certain of the rays are very, very prominent, And it's interesting with Japan right now, they have an aging crisis. You know, they don't have enough young people. We might say that the disciplined Capricorn to which they have subjected themselves is working against them to a certain extent. We read so much about uh, certain kinds of Japanese people literally working themselves to death. Working themselves to death. They're so uptight about the whole work ethic that it leads to their demise. And take a look at the signs. There's your Capricorn disciplining personality, pushing things way too far, we might say, and the Scorpio, which is the sign of death. And at the same time, of course, you have the whole samurai mentality, which has been glamored in the Second World War as Scorpio emerged in that way. You know, anytime you try to recapture former greatness, you fall in with the Black Lodge. And that even applies to America at this point. So you know, in the World War, Italy tried to recapture Rome, Germany, the glory of the ancient Teuton, and Japan tried to recapture the great samurai tradition, and all three of them failed. Okay, but I think we can see here. Yes, Tuya, or someone.
Yes, I am here. I was just thinking to point out in relationship to Tokyo and these first ray energies, or then also the seventh ray when Uranus went into Aries.
Yes.
The same day happened the Fukushima accident in Japan near Tokyo. And when we think also the earthquake, because it was after the tsunami, that tsunami, the waters, overflowing waters, is and are destroying and affecting, and then this electric energy of Uranus is affecting. It just came to my mind that have we ever studied then Hiroshima in earlier states, how Uranus was affecting then, or did it, to Japan or Tokyo, because there is something on that level, awakening or stimulating, whatever it is. Of course, we always can relate to karma, which is about the seventh ray, first ray, the same line, but like it just came to my mind because it is manifesting on physical plane.
You know,
and it has been the second time.
Wherever earthquakes are found, you know, you'll read about this in various astrology books. It's usually about the planet Uranus, which really, really shakes things up and gives room for a higher archetype. And we'll have to watch Japan very carefully. Edgar Casey has some things to say about Japan, which are, you know, threatening about, you know, how there has to be a sinking and all of that may have to occur. It is an island nation. We will see, but it's a very important nation. And Uranus is actually, well, it's the exalted planet in Scorpio, and Saturn is the major ruling planet in Capricorn. One day, the true spiritual factors will emerge in these countries. We're not quite there yet, but let's just say for whatever reason, Japan is really getting shaken up. And you know how it is with Capricorn. It's usually such a stable sign, and you get locked in to certain patterns that you repeat. And along comes Uranus and really squares that Capricorn energy, and then shakes it up into a new role. So it's interesting he mentions materialism. Let us see what role it has to play in the general personality of humanity and in relation to the third aspect. And look, here's another sign, Cancer. maybe it's operating in a different way, Tokyo has been very, Japan, racially pure. They do not blend easily with other groups and races, and when there is a blending, they tend to criticize it. So they've been very walled off in a certain respect from accepting and assimilating others. Very different from the Cancerian expression for the United States and in New York. But you can imagine Scorpio and Capricorn and their rulers are the two signs particularly which admit you into the hierarchy. So from that perspective, the Tokyo in Japan will be very important. And think of it, the fourth ray is coming in now, okay? And those nations which have the soul on the fourth ray, or maybe even the fourth ray personality, will be very much stimulated. Look at Germany. Fourth ray soul under Aries. Look at Tokyo. Fourth ray soul under Scorpio. No wonder they formed an alliance, and hopefully it will be for a much better purpose now. Okay, there's just so much we could say as we try to blend these together. Is there anybody in the group that would like to ask or say anything about this particular nation? Let's see, Susie is here. To turn to past glories. Yeah, it's so true. I've done the permutations on that word. Evil, veil, vile, and live. Evil, veil, vile, live are all permutations that you can get by manipulating those particular letters. And of course, there were glories of the former times, but people, when they feel desperate about their present condition, and they don't think their present condition is very promising at all, then they tend to look for former glories. And those, I don't know of any instance in which they have really been recaptured or worked out properly. They usually have been under the retrogressive influence of the Lodge of Materialism. Yeah, okay, Suzanne. Now, okay, let's try to, just quickly. It's hard to go quick, but to do the other two. Geneva is very subtle, and notice how the two highest rays are so prominent with Geneva. It is a great second ray subjective planetary center and should be very important in helping to pull the world together into unity, into harmony. Maybe it's not fully active yet, but the first ray is the soul ray of Geneva, and again, the second ray personality. So take a look at that. 2, 1, and 2. And it's ruled by it's Switzerland, of course. It's and some of France is right in there. It's ruled by Leo. Now, Leo is very interesting in this respect, that Leo has a first ray coming through it. It's all about rulership, the will to rule, and also the fifth ray is there as well. So the will to illumine and the will to rule. But the will to rule is strong, but let it be the rulership of love in a great second-ray country. Now, look at Switzerland, in which Geneva is placed. It has the Aries soul and Aquarius personality. It's going to blend somewhat with the United States and with Russia and with, I think is it Holland or, one of the Netherlands countries there? Aquarius is strong there. But with the Aries soul, it blends right in with the first ray. Now, the first ray of the city, Geneva. Now, just think of it for a minute and look at India. There's going to be, see, that's how we would do it. We'd look for similarities of rays, and then we'd say, there must be relations here because of those similarities. Now, India has an Aries soul and a first ray soul. Switzerland has the Aries soul, and Geneva, its major center, has the first ray soul. So right away, there's a bridge occurring there. Now, we hear about, Switzerland. It has a fierce independence, and they've somehow managed to preserve, recently at least, their immunity. Now, it's got a lot of the country itself, I think, has a lot of the fifth ray, very, very precise. I was told a story. It's a fifth ray story that some scientists from a particular country were sort of bragging about what they could do, and they sent to Switzerland scientists an ultra, ultra thin piece of metal, so strong and so thin that you could hardly, imagine those kinds of dimensions. And as if to say, look, we can make this kind of product. And it is said that the Swiss sent it right back to that country with a hole in the middle of the metal. In other words, they were able to actually bore into the metal that was ultra thin and show still a greater level of expertise. The Tibetan says the Swiss people oftentimes have the goiter problem because of a congestion of energy in the throat center. The Tibetan says the Swiss are very intelligent, but they are not creative in the sense that the third ray would be creative. So, and kind of more of a taciturn kind of approach. So it's the fifth ray rather than the third ray, I suspect, is going to be really a part of that soul nature. It could be an Aries fifth ray soul, or there's also the hyper organization that the Swiss are known for, and for the security of money. People are always running to bury their money in Swiss bank accounts because they consider them to be the most secure way of hiding your money. There's some darkness around that and all that, but you can see that the seventh ray is active. Now, if I'm correct, and I don't know yet whether I am, that the fifth and the seventh ray of Switzerland are very important, look at the rays of London, the fifth ray soul and the seventh ray personality. So can it be that the two rays of Switzerland correlate with the two rays of London? And, we would have to, and then there are all these minor rays that are coming in. He said, the United Kingdom is ruled by Taurus, but England itself is ruled by Aries. Hence the redcoats, in other words, the military garb of the English at that time. So there are many subdivisions that any astute student of political psychology will have to go into. Anyway, Geneva is second ray. Can you think of how the second ray fits with the sign Leo? And I'll just say, of course you can. And basically, there are three fire signs. Aries has most to do with the spirit. Leo has most to do with the soul, the second aspect. And Sagittarius has most to do with the personality, or the third aspect. So the radiant heart center is ruled by Leo. It's the second of the fire signs. And it fits very well with the second ray of this planetary center. So let's just say it's very subjective. The Christ has not yet returned. The hierarchy has not yet made its appearance. The great second ray which they will bring is not in full expression by any means, but you can see how important Geneva and its rays could be when that kind of emergence does occur. So, the best thing that can happen is there's a beneficent combination of the first and second rays. They don't just have to fight each other the way they oftentimes do. They can blend together, as you've seen in some of the greatest leaders. Let's just say Abraham Lincoln, first ray, second ray. Or let's just say second ray monad, first ray soul, second ray personality. That's kind of the assessment that I give. And let's see, I had another one, and I'm having trouble thinking of it. But anyway, the combination of the second ray and first ray together makes a very excellent blend when it comes to leading a country along the political lines, because it's not just will, love is there as well. So we're going to look for the emergence of this love, wisdom, but with firmness. Now, see, who has the, who has the motto of Geneva? Anybody? I would have to, Destiny of the Nations, motto. Oh, let's see if I can find it here. I seek to fuse, to blend and serve. So this is, you can understand it's a very second ray kind of motto. Let's see, what is the motto of, do we have the motto of Tokyo? I wonder. No, it doesn't say. It doesn't, let's see, where is this? MOTTOS, OES, models. Let's try there. Esoteric models. Maybe we'll find it here. Okay. But these are of the countries as a whole. And when it comes to Switzerland, I guess we could say Geneva and Switzerland together, I seek to fuse and blend and serve. But it's particularly the city of Geneva that has that, sorry. I'll go back here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, the table of models. Okay, this is a very important table. So, do better than I did. Try to memorize it, okay? Let's see, France. Switzerland's not here. I released the light. Wow. So these is very, very important. And every ray, except the third ray, is represented as a soul ray. And I think that's very, very interesting. Personality ray, yes, you have China, you have France, okay, and there's a lot of business dealings going on between those two. But I don't see Switzerland here. I seek to fuse and blend and serve. It's mostly Geneva, I think. Now, is there anything with Tokyo? I'm not seeing the Tokyo model. Are you? And Darjeeling, I'm not seeing that, except India, I hide the light, right? And when it comes to Japan, is there anything here from Japan in terms of a motto? No, it's not given. So it had not really emerged clearly when this was written, would be my guess. But study closely this particular diagram or chart on page 50, because it gives important destiny of each of these nations and of the cities, which are the major cities in the nation, and some of them are planetary centers. Is there anybody who has anything they want to ask or say about Geneva? I had a friend who worked there, and he took me through the United Nations, part of it in Geneva, and it's a special place, and it will emerge even stronger. So take a look at Switzerland. It's got an airy soul, and its major city here is ruled by Leo. The only thing missing is Sagittarius. So the fire signs are there. Anybody have anything you want to say or ask about those? Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, well, let's try to finish up, because obviously we're not going to get further than this. The next time we get together, which will be in a week or so, it'll be Science of Triangles 39. We're going to get into something very, very important. It'll be a map of how triangles really work, and requires a lot of thought from all of us. So that will be the next thing that we do. But right now, let's just look at Darjeeling. Some people who are disciples now are trying to activate this center. I have a feeling it's not so much in the hands of the disciples as it is in the hands of the masters, and we certainly have 100 years to go before, in these various planetary centers, the masters can be found with their initiates and disciples. So it's a first-ray center, but a very powerful crown center, purpose, first ray. So it's not oppressive, it's not materialistic, it's not constructive, it is occult. So this is, I would say, a really occult center. And I'll just put that in just to... and now notice, remember how it goes in Destiny of the Nations. The first ray is the occultist. The second ray is the mystic. The third ray is the magician. The fourth ray is the artist. The fifth ray is the scientist. Sixth ray, the devotee. And seventh ray, the ritualist. So the ritualist is on the seventh ray, and the magician is on the third ray, according to this chart given in the Destiny of the Nations. So here's Darjeeling. Probably nations have a monadic ray too, just the way people do, just the way planets do, and so forth. It's just too early to talk about that, because we haven't even gotten to the point where the soul ray is really emerging. But you can see with this Scorpio energy of Darjeeling how deep it can go, and how it can be, in a sense, a power center from which the struggle against darkness can be pursued. So it's a first ray planetary center of a very occult nature, with a second ray wisdom soul, I would say. And what is the fifth ray? Well, I guess, I would say the science of the spirit will be emerging from this center. Right now, it's in no shape exoterically to do anything like that. I mean, there's just so many disadvantages, and the people are poor, and, they're not organized, and the people that are trying to get Darjeeling stimulated, okay, they may feel they know what they are doing, but it's a long haul. Now think about India, because it's really the great Indian city from the spiritual point of view. Aries, first ray soul. That fits exactly with the first ray of Darjeeling. And then India has the Capricorn fourth ray personality, two rays that it's difficult to put together, but he says India has been a battlefield right down the ages. So somehow going from this conflict in India into the true light, well, look, I hide the light is India's motto. Now, the most luminous of all the ray lords is the fifth ray lord. So the whole idea of the emerging light is very, very strong. Now, normally, Taurus is considered the sign of illumination, but when you consider the stages of meditation as they correlate with the astrological signs, you have Leo for concentration, You have Virgo for meditation. You have Libra for contemplation. And believe it or not, you have Scorpio for illumination. More light coming under Scorpio because, after all, it does rule the Buddhic plane, and its major planet is Mercury, the carrier of light from here to there. So it's a very, very first-rate center, and the spiritual science, I think, will emerge from here, and a great, okay, get rid of that one, and a great understanding of the second ray from the wisdom aspect. You know, when you look at Master Moria, well, he was the wise King Solomon. He was also Akbar the Great. I would sometimes wonder whether he was Charlemagne. I don't know. He's had a number of, and Moses, probably Moses. He's had a number of illustrious incarnations in a leadership role. And always he was able to use not just the first ray, but the second ray to gather together the best minds and hearts for the expression and celebration of wisdom. So, this is Moria's town, as they call it, Darjeeling, and its subjectivity has yet to emerge, along with the soul of India, which still is in latency. Although I do look at their, well, they're an atomic power, aren't they? And even though this is on a lower turn of the spiral, their rockets are called Agni. It really fits very well with that whole first ray presentation. So two great first ray soul nations are India and China, and they have the most population, both of them over 1 billion. So they will emerge very, very powerfully in the new age, and we have to hope that the materialism of China and the disorganization of India do not prevent their gift from really being given as it should. Let's take a look here at this chart again. Darjeeling, Ray 2 Soul, wisdom, I would say. Ray 5, personality, helping to reveal the signs of the spirit. The general sign is Scorpio, the sign of struggle against darkness and revelation of a greater light. And it operates for India and the greater part of Asia, and gives a very high Ray 1, much higher than the materialistic presentation at the moment of Tokyo. Remember that the sign Cancer is a little bit retrogressive. You look in the sky right now, you can barely see it. Around it are Gemini and Leo. They're both very bright. Cancer is quite dim. It represents the past. And even the United States is what DK calls the heir to the Piscean civilization, the Piscean sixth ray civilization. So we have lots to do with dealing with the past in the United States and inheriting some of the less developed souls with whom there is a great contest right now, as they want what they want when they want it, Okay, now, I think the information is here. Ray London, Ray 1, especially from the building aspect, Vulcan, very important. Geneva, Ray 2, the love-wisdom aspect. New York, Ray 6, the devotion and idealism aspect. And when you think about the Americas, there's a lot of Ray 6, both in South America and North America, maybe excluding Canada, as I said, for that particular quality. Tokyo, Ray 1, from the materialistic aspect, and Darjeeling, Ray 1, from the deeply esoteric aspect. And the triangular formation, let's see, it's what page was this we were on? I think we were on Esoteric Astrology, and it was right around page 458. Let's see. How we go here, yeah. So sometime what we have to do is look at the undeveloped yet emerging interplay between London, New York, and Darjeeling, and the interplay between Tokyo, New York, and Geneva. Now, each one of those triangles has a city which is not yet fully in expression. Darjeeling is far from fully in expression, and Geneva is very, very subjective. The first ray energy of Darjeeling, the second ray energy of Geneva, and, we have to develop this as time goes on. What does it say? Geneva and Darjeeling are two centers in which pure spiritual energy can be directed with more facility than through the other three, and they therefore constitute the higher points of their respective triangles. They are more subjective in their influence than are London, New York, or Tokyo. Together they form 5 centers of impelling energy today. Is there anybody who has any questions or thoughts about Darjeeling? It's a big study. It's a big study. So, DK, he tells us here. Yes, go ahead.
Michael,
Yeah.
yes, just a little point about this second and fifth ray. They both are the ones which are releasing the most of the light, as you have been saying. And if we think about the human history and all these wisdom teaching, how much it is in this area, the Buddha, Krishna, all that history, what has been affecting the whole humanity, and how it is to come in the future. Now, the women, it has been said sometimes that when you want to see soul rising, you have to investigate the conditions that the women are living, not only the children. How you treat the children, you see the future of the country, but how you see the soul emerging in the country, in the nation, you have to look how the women are treated. And now women are really standing up in India.
They're rising in these.
They are rising.
Yeah. Well, look, Master Moria says that women will bring in the new age. And when you look at Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Helena Roerich, our teaching is coming from these 3 women, largely, who worked as amanuensis with either Master DK or Master Moria. So, indeed, it's really true that it's like Venus having to triumph over Mars, which it must, Venus, the sacred planet of the soul, and Mars, the non-sacred planet of the personality. So Venus must rise in that sense. Let's just finish up this little bit, and DK just polishes it off, and he says, if students will study this information in connection with that given elsewhere, in connection with other nations and cities, I suppose he means destiny of the nations, because we're in the astrology book. Okay, the interrelations now emerging in world affairs will be seen as the result of the play of these forces and energies, and therefore unavoidable. We are conditioned by forces and energies which are way beyond our capability of altering. All we can do is use them as properly as we can, being human beings. The use of the energy may be along wrong lines, producing separation and trouble. Well, just look what's going on in the world today. Or along right lines, leading to eventual harmony. He doesn't push us, okay, and understanding. But the energy is there and must make its effects in any case. As in the individual life, the results of the play of the life of the soul upon the form aspect, one or other of the rays will dominate and control. Now, this is an important point he's going to make. If the person or nation is spiritually oriented, the result of the energy impact will be good and will lead towards the working out of the divine plan and thus wholly constructed. So now we're talking about at least soul energy. That's what we're talking about. Where personality force dominates, the effects will be destructive and hindering to the emergence of divine purpose. Now, that's happening in the United States right now, and in England, or rather United Kingdom right now, and in other places in the world, the battle exactly between soul and personality. Nevertheless, even destructive force finally can and does work towards good. In other words, the personality ray becomes not a contestant with the soul ray, it becomes a sub-ray of the soul ray. For the trend of the evolutionary force is unalterable. That will is so strong, it's going to lead to true spiritual development, and it may be retarded somewhat. Somewhere DK gives a figure about 300 years of retardation is possible, but not necessary. Okay. For the trend of the evolutionary force is unalterable. It can be slowed down or speeded up according to the purpose, aspiration, and orientation of the entity, human or national. It can express soul purpose or personality selfishness, but the urge towards betterment will inevitably triumph. Well, very, very promising thoughts, I think, for us, and also alerting us to our responsibility in connection, even with our nation, even with the family of nations, even with humanity and its two rays. Presently, I think the fourth and the fifth, and eventually to become Ray 2 and Ray 4, eventually. Okay, now, are there any points that you would like to make, whether from staff or whether from the general group? This would be the time to do that if there is something you want to bring up and something you notice, something you want to perhaps discuss or question. And look, the science of triangles is behind it all. The way these nations and entities interact spiritually is always going to be triangular. That's the ideal. So, when we master our work with ourselves and to other people and all that, we're preparing for a day of international spiritual triangularity. International spiritual triangularity, as when he tells us that the fate of humanity is largely in the hands of the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia. There's a triangle, and in great experiments are operating in those particular entity nations, which will determine at least the immediate fate of humanity as a whole. Okay, anybody, you're most welcome to question, ask, whatever, or make a statement, whatever it happens to be, if you wish. Well, you see, we are studying some of the bigger units of life. Now, compared to a planet, a nation isn't much. And compared to a sun, a planet isn't much. And compared to a constellation, a sun isn't much. And on we go. But somehow, to think that these larger structures, too, are organized in such a way that we ourselves should be organized. And we will see, and we have been studying, that everything in our etheric body is meant to triangulate eventually. So we have to go through life with an eye open for possible spiritual triangulations. We have to do that. Right. Okay, it's nice to see some of you here that were not here at the very beginning, and we've gathered a good little group here. I'm glad to see it. And now you know, Tuya and I have re-begun the Ask program after, if any of you have been at conference and been close to us and how we operate, you will see that from the crack of dawn till the wee hours, there's just not time to do anything else but the conference, you know. So we give up to the inevitable and then discontinue for a while and restart the whole process. And that's what we're doing now. Okay? Now, Tuya, I have let's see, I don't see anything else right now. I have, what do I have here? I thought I had the triangles thing available. Well, I better.
Okay, can you do that?
Yes, how about that? You know, maybe I ought to have that done, huh? What do you think? If you can see anything that says triangles here, I'm willing to. I know what I'll do. I'll actually use the search function. Because the other came from Soul of Nations. Okay, triangle. Triangles. Okay, there we go. And let's see if you see anything. Okay, this will do it. And then you can lead us in an abbreviated little meditation here. Okay, and...
By the way, Bea, did you manage to get that from your email and send to people?
I did get it from my email, and I was going to post it to Makara, but I can do that. I can email it to all the attendees here today.
All right, that'd be great. That'd be great, and we try to get it out there. Okay, Tuya, can we begin here? Is this a good place?
Yeah, so you don't want to do that?
No, unless you want me to.
I was just asking that. Shall you do that?
If you'd like me to do that, I'll do it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
Okay. So anyway, here's what we begin with, and just think about, you know, here we are on this tiny little planet and tiny little people, but we're forming group connections. And let's see if I can get myself, my cursor continues to disappear. And I don't know what to do about it because it's just disappearing. Okay. Well, I won't worry about it. So you'll have to put up with the image, which is not the best. Okay. So here we are, part of a triangles network, and I'm assuming we each are at least working in one triangle. I mean, you know, let's make sure we work in one triangle, at least. Some people may be working in 20 or 50, you never know, but so DK gives to one of his students, he says, look, you know, rest back in the morning and and see a triangle of light, which is basically orangey, golden orange in color, and make of it a solid triangle, and see it pouring into every aspect of your etheric nature and really every aspect of your personality. The baseline is on the higher mental plane, and the apex is inverted, and you have basically touching your head center. So let's visualize that happening within us. And this golden orange color is pouring down, and DK says, leave it to him. He will use the visualization to help us solve our various issues. It's like the Masonic apron, you know. It's the triangle hovering above the square. It's the spiritual aspect of man hovering above the fourfold personality, and we know the story. Eventually, this network of squares that we find very much, I think, in our etheric body, and it's certainly in the etheric body of the planet, has to be transformed into the network of triangles. So let's just visualize that happening. So eventually our own etheric body will be triangularly formed, and one triangle above all, probably according to our monadic ray, eventually will shine forth as indicating the major focus, either in the head, the heart, or the throat center, according to the first three rays, the rays of aspect. Now, think about the little network that you have. If you have just a few triangles, you'll have time to do this, but if you have many, then of course you'll need more time. But just think about who you're working with and the soul-infused personalities that are connecting with each other. And you know, every once in a while, if you have a lot of triangles you're working with, just really take the time and focus in with really deep quality, even though the list may be long. Maybe once a week do that, and try to establish really deep feeling and a sense of intensity of purpose. So anyway, let's see light and love and power passing through our own little triangles network. But of course, our little network is connected with the greater network of triangles all over the world, from state to state and city to city and country to country, continent to continent. And we're aiming approximately for 100,000 triangles, the old story goes, and then the turn can be made. And once we really strengthen the network, the Buddhas of activity can use it. If there are planetary emergencies that really require the light, love, and power to offset very dangerous situations, and then we're becoming part of that guardian defending wall. So very high connections. Think of it, look at this diagram. Our own little network connected to the global network, connected to the Buddhas of activity in Shambhala, and probably, at the center of every triangle, not only the Christ, but Sanat Kumara himself at a certain stage of elevation. Get the feeling that triangles are really living in you. It's a vital, living, electric structure, and you're really connected. So we sense the integration, and then we know the triangles are essentially invocative. They call down the energies just the way the great invocation does. So when we link with our triangles, we do use the great invocation, and we will do this in English, and we'll say it together, pausing between the verses. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center Where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So, friends, thank you. And we'll be back tomorrow in the morning, 5 a.m. GMT, and to you will be giving the reappearance of the Christ meditation. Then on Friday, we'll have the webinar. Let's see, what's that webinar on? I think it's glamour.
Glamour.
Yeah. Okay. How could I forget glamour? Anyway, glamour early in the morning. Maybe it's easy to fall victim of glamour later at night, but anyway, early in the morning, glamour. And then on Saturday, the Soul of Nations broadcast, 5 a.m. GMT. And on Sunday, the Attracting Money for Hierarchical Purposes. So we do hope you'll be able to join us, and just be aware that we've got a lot of stuff going up on our Moria Federation Esoteric Education YouTube website. There's probably about 2,500 people there, and almost that many programs, really. So, you can join and you can subscribe, and you'll be notified about what's going up. Just recently, what did we put up there to you? We just had a new one that just went up. It looks just like a...
You mean today?
What is it, dear?
Do you mean today?
Oh, it was just the other day, Anyway...
we have had the Ascension.
Yeah.
You mean that?
We had the Ascension Day, and we had one other thing. How can I be forgetting that? That wouldn't be...
the new moon.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But anyway, when you go there, you just... there's just ever so many things that you'll be able to see. I just went there, Moria Federation Esoteric Education, and see already, look, it says a triangles meditation from this morning went up, and here's the Gemini Festival of Goodwill. We have a lot of things that you can participate in. So, and you'll find all kinds of playlists, and you'll find some people that like it and some people that don't like it. We get kind of followed by some fundamentalist types that are always really happy to put their thumb down, But that's what the sixth ray is going to be attracted by the second ray until it's finally captured by the second ray. So they don't know that that's coming up. Anyway, yeah, that's what we have. Okay. So thank you, everybody, too. Do you have anything you want to say finally?
Thank you for everybody. And next Sunday, it's going to be Pentecost, very important festival for the disciples.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we continue our work together, getting the teaching out there the best we can so that it can be rightly assimilated. So all the very best to everybody, and, let light and love and power restore the planet Earth, and our thanks to BL and to Michael Stacy for helping us along here. And soon this will also be posted, at least on Makara, which is our own website for these matters. Okay, all the best, and many blessings, and lots of love, and we'll talk to you. We'll be with you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.